A warm welcome to the treatment room. Hi, Andy.
All right, Phil, good to be back.
Indeed. And this is the third in a short series. If you missed out on the other two, we've talked about marketing in the sector and the importance of marketing. We've also talked about customer journey and the importance of thinking of patients as customers. So if you've missed out on that one, go take a look. If you're curious about what an elephant's got to do with marketing, then also go and have a listen to the first in this series. But in this one, we're actually going to talk about some of the challenges of marketing and sales within the business. So, Andy, I guess a lot of clinicians join the industry to help people lead full and healthy lives and to help people to get fit. And we're kind of then moving on to say, but we need to be much, much clearer about our approach to marketing and sales for our therapy business, and how we target customers, etc. So how on earth do we think about making our clinics more profitable as businesses?
So a kind of similar theme, if I'm honest, from the last two. I think you work backwards.
Yeah.
I would say.
In other words, we wouldn't start with marketing, would we? But we know everybody starts with marketing, which is why we've started this.
I would start with marketing in mind.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would say, if the question is, if you ask yourself the question, what's your ideal customer look like? What would keep them coming back? What would a customer, once they've achieved their outcome, say to their friends, family, and work colleagues? If you start with that and then work backwards, that then starts to help you define and refine, I think, your marketing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I think that's something that, it's not something to be rushed, or it's not something to, you're not going to get this right straight away. I mean, you're a bit of a geek like me, Phil. I think that's fair to, to make that assumption.
I've been called some things, so I'll accept the term geek as well, Andy. Okay. That's okay, mate.
You're well read, then. I'll call myself a geek. You'll say you're a curious soul, should we say? Yeah.
Curious learner. Yeah.
Curious learner. So, and we've both read, and I'm sure many of the listeners have read, loads of marketing stuff. Now, and the fact that you put marketing into Amazon, or you walk into a bookshop, for those of you that travel to and from London, we've all walked into that, the bookshop at Euston train station, and we all look, or, if we're going to an airport, and there's a whole section on marketing. And the reason why, in my opinion, that there's so many books out there and so many experts and so many things is because there's no one fits all scenario. And there's so many different variables on it. But even if you read some of the most sought after ones, they talk around trial and error. They talk around saying, try this, see what works, see what goes back. Okay. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think for me, if you are re-looking at your business, if you're starting your business up, it all starts from going, okay, so we're going to get our first customer. What's going to make them want to come back time after time after time after time? Okay. So they come with shoulder injury. They come with a lower back injury. What's going to make them come back for the second appointment? What's going to come back for the third appointment? What's going to make them stay with us until we've achieved their outcome? And I think you should be able to answer that question as a business. And I think if you can't answer that question, then you need to go exploring. If you're an established business already, what's brilliant is you've got loads of customers you can ask, what made you come back?
Absolutely.
Why do you like us?
And yet so many of us don't.
And again, these are the things is, if you, let's say you've had a business for a couple of years, and you've got a client, you referred to this in one of our recent podcasts around a regular client, one that may return, have you ever sat down with one of them and said, why do you keep coming back? What is it? Oh, I'm always injured. But why did you choose me? Why did you choose our business? Because I think those relevant questions can give you some nuggets that you may not have considered.
I think a thing to reflect about, and I know we haven't rehearsed this one, but I know you like bouncers every now and again, is in our local town here, there are lots of cafes. And we probably spend more time in one or two of them than any other. And I know you take your daughter into one on a regular basis. And I guess, you know, a cup of coffee is a cup of coffee at the end of the day, or a cup of tea if you're a tea drinker. But what makes you, without necessarily saying, you know, it's jungle, what makes you go?
A quick little plug there. If the,
well, why not? For a kind of a local business that we both have a favorite. But what makes you what made you choose it, and what makes you go back, I guess?
I chose it because I met you there once, didn't I? And it was, and I think.
Oh, so it's me then. So it was a referral.
Fault.
Oh, I should get a fee for that
so
then.
I met you there, and you. I think you knew the owner through through their work somewhere else, so that you'd come there because you knew somebody. I'd met you there and thought this is quite cool, and it happened to be locality wise, it happened to be around the corner from my daughter's ballet, so it meant that, you know, I could pick her up, we'd go, and then as her ballet got later, I could go and we went and had breakfast there, and we actually had breakfast there before she went to ballet. So what made me go back was the fact of, at the time she was 5-6 years old, and they had a load of board games. So while I was waiting, you know, for a 5-6-year-old, if listeners have got 5-6-year-olds in a cafe waiting for some food, you know, and for those listeners that have traveled to Cledo, the Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi in the place, and the signal's not brilliant. So, you know, you can't sit there with a phone and go, what's that?
You have to talk, ironically, you have to talk to people.
So you have to have a conversation. Look, very fortunately for me, I quite like my daughter, and she's very articulate, and we have some good conversations. So we could have a board game, and they have board games. So we'd have dominoes, we'd play all kinds. I think they had a Hungry Hippo. They had all kinds of things. But every time we went, they'd save that, because they knew on a Saturday morning we went, they'd save the same table for us. So we actually went, and they'd go, and it come to the point where we very frequent visitors that the minute we walked in, we just kind of got a thumbs up. We went up to the table, and an Americano and a fresh orange juice appeared. You know, obviously added it to the bill, Phil, but they are a business after all. But what I'm saying is, you know, it is they remembered our order, and their order, and a food menu came. You know, and every time we've gone, they've accommodated us, and you know, you felt special, didn't you? You know, you felt looked after.
Yeah, and I guess some listeners might be thinking, what on earth are they doing whittering on about a cafe? For me, it's the essential. It's what actually we're talking about as the core of this podcast, really, isn't it? It's that identity, that relationship that you build, or the business owner builds with their client base, who then, you know, will refer on. Will bring their friends and their business colleagues for a cup of coffee. They know what they're going to get. The menu changes. The food is brilliant. The hospitality is nicely balanced, and the environment is great. So, you know, in your clinic, you know, what's the equivalent of replicating that, you know, in the listeners' environment? Think about the environment that you're in, how appealing it is. You know, is it more like going to a doctor's surgery than it might be to a cafe? And the reality is, if you build the right environment, and everybody within the business is aligned to that customer journey, as we would refer to it, then you're going to get repeat business, you're going to get great outcomes, and you're going to improve your bottom line.
100%. And sometimes it's the smallest little details that that are helpful. And you know, I'll always remember, if we go back to the jungle cafe analogy, I once, when we got a dog, and when it was a puppy, it couldn't be left at home, so we sat outside, and he still asks, even if I'm walking past the street, how's the dog? No, oh, not so little anymore. But again, it's the small details, and these are things that even with our own customers, you know, we can make those details if it's around, you know, if customers talk about, you know, I've got this shoulder problem. Okay, what's to prevent you doing? Well, I can't throw the ball for the dog. And for dog walkers, you know, out there, and especially those Labrador owners, you know, that, you know, one of the things you have to keep doing is throwing this ball, because these retrievers just keep all day able to keep bringing it back. So it's an important part of the whole day-to-day lifestyle to be able to throw the ball. So if you see somebody and, you know, that's a big part of them, and you go, next time you see them, or you go, you know, now you can throw the ball back, the dog's happy, it's some level of rapport that people will remember.
It is, and to know that the dog is called Fred or Molly or Wilf or whatever it is, adds the extra point, doesn't it? Because if it's going, hi Andy, how are you? How's your dog? You know, that's good. That's good rapport building, good connection, and it shows that you have an interest beyond taking the 50 quid off on for the piece of work you're going to do, or whatever you happen to charge for the piece of treatment that you're giving.
It's really, you know, it's a really simple equation. So if you've got a phone and you go, right, let's say you've got a customer you've done a great job to, okay, and you simply just go, right, so I'm going to ask every person that comes in to recommend 3 people. Yeah. So those 3 people, so you ask 3 people and they ask 3 people, okay, so that's 9 new customers. If they all ask 3 people, it's 27 new customers. If they all ask 3 people, or that's 81 new customers, okay? And that can all come from one conversation of going, do you know 3 friends? You know, and especially, let's be totally honest, you know, keep it on the dog theme, because people come all the time and go, can't walk my dog, or my shoulder hurts because my dog's pulled. If you're a dog walker, you're familiar with other dog walkers. You know, you only have to go around here. I probably know most of the locals' names, and I haven't got the foggiest clue what they do for a living. I know the name and I know what kind of dog they've got. Yeah. You know, so if, you know, you've got a bad shoulder, you could turn around and go, oh, do you know what? I said, oh, I can't throw the ball, my shoulder's bad. Right. Oh God, I've got that as well. Oh, I'm seeing, you know, Phil Badley around the corner. You know, you need to go and see them. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, well, I'll check them out. Here's the number. All of a sudden, it's a conversation starter because you've had a good experience.
Sure.
And so actually, but again, it comes back to marketing, is how are you going to create that level of rapport with all of your customers that they want to have that conversation?
Yeah. I think the other thing that strikes me, just as you're thinking about those 2 little stories that we've told, is very often we'll throw quite a lot of money, and this is what we're going to be talking about on some of the webinars, at social media, on advertising. And let's for ease just say that our charge out rate is 50 quid. If we think of a new person arriving as a value of 50 quid, or we think of them in recovery terms, maybe 6, 12 more visits over a period of time, then actually they suddenly become a high value customer. So actually they might be spending 500 or 600 quid with us. And actually, if we thought about them at the start as if they were a 500 or 600 pound customer, we would probably treat them differently than somebody who just drops in for a cup of coffee at 3 quid. So if I think about the money that, you know, over time I will have spent in that cafe, I'm a high value customer. And And that's because of how I was treated at the start and how I'm treated when I go back in. So I'm ever likely to keep going back in there and become a high value customer because of that environment. And I think it's sometimes we lose that, because if we're busy, we're seeing lots of people in a day, and our clinic is really busy and there's lots of people coming through the door, and receptionists going, yeah, just sit down there, wait for Andy, he'll be there in a minute, or wait for Stan or Mary or whoever it is. It becomes a bit of a production line. And if it's a production line, you can go and get a takeaway cup of coffee from a machine and have no interaction and just get the same output, but you don't get the same kind of environment, you don't get the same care and support. So I think that's also something that I reflect on more and more these days, in terms of thinking of people as their whole life value to the business, and therefore the time and effort we might put in and the courtesy that we might show those individuals as counting for quite a lot in terms of the likelihood of their return. You've got to be good at your job. You've got to know your technical stuff. You've got to know how to make good coffee or fix a shoulder. But that's almost a given. It's what you build around that makes a difference.
And my only addition to that is, I think most listeners would say in a treatment room, inside the room, they would. Yeah. I think that it is. I think in that moment when they're with them, I would hope all healthcare professionals are in optimal state. So they're in an optimal state to provide. Where we see in lots of businesses is actually what happens when the customer leaves, because they are busy. So they've gone in that state. They've said, Phil, this is what you've got. Don't you worry, I'm going to get you better. This is what the journey is going to look like. These are the exercises. I'm going to send you an email with them all on. But then there's another customer. They forget to send the email. Or they've promised to get them in twice this week, but they're that busy in their diary, they can't fit them in and actually can't see them for 2 weeks because they're so busy. Or I'll call you and they fail to check up on them, or whatever it is. These are the points of where it all falls down. So I think where you've got to be smart with this is, like you've just said, is and I know it's challenging for a clinician to turn around and think of, oh my God, I can't see a patient as a 500 quid customer. Well, as a business terminology, sometimes you have to, because if we take the clinical element away, somebody coming into your business, let's say, let's call them 500 quid just for the argument of this discussion. Yeah. Then if you, and we talk with the end in mind, okay, if you know on average, if you've looked at your data, people are spending 500 quid, but then you can look at what your overheads are and your costs are, you could work out how much profit each customer brings. You can then make a good assumption of what you're prepared to pay for that. So let's go on 50-50, just for argument's sake, right? And maths has never been my strongest point, and the calculator's over there, okay? So you have 500 quid customer, it costs you 250 quid in rent, overhead, and staff okay, so you make 250 pounds. Yeah. How much are you prepared to pay on marketing to make 250 quid? Because that again is the question, isn't it? Now, unfortunately, in our industry, you ain't going to make 50% margin, but, as an example, let's say you're making, a good clinic might make 15-20 quid per session. So, an average journey length, if we look at a lot of things, is 5. So then you are making 100 quid. So, but if you're spending 50 quid to get a customer, then you're only your actual profit is 50 quid. And you might be happy with making 50 quid per customer, but that's what you're making. Yeah. So
what's even we've certainly had some of these conversations in the past with clients, but if you're spending 150 quid to get 100 quid because you don't know your numbers, then that can be disaster, and that's the kind of the reverse angle to this, isn't it? And knowing your numbers is key.
Yeah, the other point, let's say you can't fit many people in because you're putting 3 hours aside to do social media marketing.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing these, or you're doing them at night. I'm not going to do my books. Sack off doing my books, because they're not as important as me getting 2 brilliant videos to put on social media, 3 hours, right? So you don't know your numbers. So you don't know what out, but then you're not even checking how well those are doing. 3 hours, what's their value to that? Well, if you're £50 a session in half an hour, £100 an hour, there's 300 quid worth value going into those 2 videos. So how are you then getting it back? So again, it's coming back to the end in mind of going, right, what would I expect to get from this? And then what's my plan to get it? And I think that's the really key thing. And these are the kind of messages that both Phil and I are going to be talking about on our webinars. You know, we are our first one's on the 19th of September.
Yeah. Second one comes in on the 10th of October, and the third one on the 21st of November, all at 7 o'clock. All on a Monday, all on Eventbrite.
Yeah. So again, you know, make sure that you do, if things like this are sparking your thought processes, then, you know, just join us live and come and have a conversation. If you fancy challenging us and about where our beliefs and sits on this, then come and join us. Let's have a conversation about things. If you're looking at your business in a new way, then these frameworks to help you process all of these things, or to help with your consideration, we've created our 10-step framework, which again, you can now get from our website, www.elevateyourclinic.com, which just breaks it down step by step to help you or facilitate you put your own kind of journey in, to ensure that what you are doing is providing a really good customer service, allows you to be helping customers go on this journey so they are more likely to come back. You know, we've got some links below of some data that shows that, you know, repeat clients are 5 times more profitable than new ones. Well, you know, if we just show you, if you don't have to spend on marketing, because you're asking a simple question of, well, have you got 3 friends? Can you recommend 3 people that all walk the dog local down by the river to you, who've all got bad shoulders? You know, give them free business cards. You know, all of a sudden, you are, from buying one customer, let's say from your marketing, you're getting a lot of additional revenue. So, and, you know, additional reputation, because the more people that come through you, the more builds your brand, which you can then, you know, even employ more people, buy better services, and provide even better service, which is what we should all be striving for anyway.
And if you've got half a dozen people working for you, and they all have dogs, so half of them have dogs and half of them are runners, and they're all doing what you're doing, making connections as they're out walking or they're out running, then your multiplication factor, you know, Andy got up to 81 earlier on in the conversation. You imagine that by 6, you know, that's that's for free.
Yeah, and that's the point that we're trying to highlight, you know, when we say this, that, you know, by just taking some time to analyze your own business and where you can make some small additional improvements. And that one question is one of the things that, you know, do you know 3 people that you think would need our help? It's something I would certainly recommend you introducing. I think we're back. Apologies. Did I get... So the one question, sorry, I lost it. I've got the one question. So ask,
just go quiet for a sec. Then you got the break, Andy. Are you still there?
Yeah.
And if we're just pause and then you pick up at the one question, I think Ali will be able to edit it.
All right. So yeah, so the one question that I would make such a difference in many businesses is, do you know 3 people that you think I can help, or we can help? You know, at the end of a session, feel free to just, you know, give out free business cards to people, or introduce them, or invite them to join, you know, the mailing list, or follow them on social media, whatever it is, you know. But all I was saying, my last comment on this is, never assume just because you provided a great service, people will naturally want to tell everybody. Sometimes you actually have to push them, or say to ask them the question of going, can you do us a favor? Can you just, next time you're out on your walk, if anyone's got a bit of a bad shoulder, we just tell them about us. Yeah, of course we will. You know, it doesn't seem to come always natural, does it? That we recommend things when we've had a brilliant experience.
Well, it's the same as the, you know, if you got a fly in your soup, as the old story would go, isn't it? You know, most if you're stereotypically, if you're a Brit, then you're less likely to complain, and in the same way, you're less likely to go, I've had great service. Let me recommend this and this person. Whereas if you give them a cue, you know, would you recommend me? Then that kind of leaves them with a positive intention to leave. So Andy, let's wrap up then. So 19th of September is the next webinar, followed by the 10th of October and the 21st of November. We're all on Eventbrite and elevateyourclinic.com to find out more. In the meantime,
thanks very much. Andy. And as always, feel free to comment. Take care. See you soon.